Hey guys, and welcome to another video. It's been a while since I uploaded the first Warzone installation guide, and I thought it's about time to have a new one with the Warzone Caldera update. As with the previous guide, I will try to cover the installation part as well as the initial setup of the game. Most specifically, I will go through the most important graphics options. At the end of the video, I'm also going to try to answer the most commonly asked questions from the previous guide, so in case you're running into issues while installing it or setting it up, stick around to the end for some troubleshooting tips and tricks. As always, feel free to comment any questions you might have and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you find this guide useful. On with the installation. Open a web browser and head over to Call of Duty Warzone website. You can find the link in the description of the video. Hit the Play Free Now link and then choose Battle.net PC. You will be redirected to the Battle.net website. Hit again the Play for Free link and your first download should be starting automatically. This is the Battle.net agent that will download Warzone for you. Once it's finished downloading, just execute it and it should start installing. If the installation won't start, check the tips at the end of the video. When the Battle.net installer opens up, select the desired install location and click on Continue. Checking the Launch Battle.net option will ensure that Battle.net agent starts up with your computer. When the Battle.net installation agent is completed, you will be required to log in or create a new account. You can create a free account by clicking on the link below, or directly create the account by linking it to your Facebook, Google, or Mac accounts. The second option is much faster, but I'll show you the manual creation one as well. Proceed with selecting your country, entering your birth date, pass the stupid verification check, enter your name, email, and phone number. Even though in Battle.net account this is marked as optional, this has become a hard requirement for playing Warzone since last year. This means that before you can play the game, you will need to provide them with your phone number. The background for this request is that they are trying to limit the number of hackers in the game. There are not so many options to bypass this check. If you really can't provide a phone number, your only other option is to look up in Google some websites that provide an SMS verification service for a fee. Moving forward, accept the terms and conditions, select a strong password and choose your battle tag. This is the name you will actually have in-game. With the account created, open up Battle.net agent again if it's not opening up by itself and use the account info to log in. Bypass the tutorial and hit the Play for Free button. You need to enter your birth date so they can ensure you are over 16 years old. Now we are requested to provide the location for the actual game files. This is a big download, 82 GB at the time of the video, so choose a drive where you have sufficient space. Please keep in mind that Warzone updates also take up a lot of space, so there should be sufficient space on this drive for the updates as well. As you proceed with the installation, the downloading of the game should start. It is a pretty big download, and for many people following my previous guide, this took quite some time. On the bright side, I did notice that Battle.net increased the maximum download speed limit to about 75 MB per second, therefore I was able to download the game much faster than last time. If you encounter issues during the download, meaning much slower speeds than what you expect, you can try to pause the download and change the region where you're downloading from. I found this to be helpful when Battle.net server had some overload issues. If you do it, don't forget to change it back to your region before starting the game, otherwise your game will lag quite a lot. After finally downloading the game, click the play button. When you start up the game, you are given the option to automatically create an Activision account. I suggest you take this route since it's much easier and this account is anyway required. If you run into issues with the automatic account creation, you can create the account directly on the Activision website, link in the description. If everything went fine, the game should start. Even though we just finished installing it, Warzone usually requests an update that requires you to restart the game. Upon restarting, you should reach the Call of Duty main screen. As a note, there are 4 games that can be launched from this screen: Vanguard, Warzone, Cold War, and Modern Warfare. Besides Warzone, all other modes need to be purchased and installed before playing them. Before you go ahead and play the game, I want to walk you through and explain the main graphics settings for the game. This game can put some serious pressure on your rig, so I'll try to explain which option does what so you can get the most FPS in the game. Open up the settings and move over to the Graphics tab. The first option, the display mode, should always be set to full screen unless you plan on doing a lot of alt-tabbing out of the game. In this case, you should use the full screen borderless options at the expense of some frames per second. The display monitor, adapter, and screen refresh rate should automatically be set, so there is nothing to change there. The render resolution is the actual resolution at which the game will be played. By default, it will be set to the native resolution of your monitor, and I strongly suggest you keep it that way. Reducing the resolution is one of the easiest ways to increase the FPS, but at the same time it will ruin the way your game looks like. The dynamic resolution and frame rate target options are exactly as the one above. The only difference is that it actually changes your resolution on the fly while you are playing so that the game delivers the maximum FPS. As for the previous option, I suggest you keep this to disabled. Aspect ratio usually doesn't need to be changed, it is set automatically. VSync should be set to disabled. If your monitor can handle G-Sync or FreeSync, this should be set from the GPU options outside of the game. Frame rate limit option is very useful and should be used. This option sets a hard limit on your FPS. While this may sound counterintuitive, setting a limit to your FPS can actually provide a more stable experience. This setting is highly related to your PC, therefore my suggestion is the following. Play a few games with this option uncapped, check to see what your max FPS is, then set this option a few frames just below that max level. This way you can ensure your GPU is not overheating and therefore not going into throttling, which ultimately affects your gaming experience. Of course, it would be preferable to have this setting higher than the refresh rate of your monitor. The brightness is relative to your screen. It can be somewhat difficult to see enemies in a darker area. I have created another video for improving the visibility in Warzone for the NVIDIA users, so check it out. NVIDIA highlights should be disabled since it consumes resources by recording your gameplay in the background. The NVIDIA Reflex low latency is quite important if you're getting low FPS. You should set it to enable. If your GPU is much better than the CPU, then use Enable plus Boost option, as this will shift the pressure from the CPU to the GPU. Now move over to the Quality tab. Think of the field view as a zoom option. You can choose to see more or less on your screen, and this affects your focus and your reaction speed. Most people keep this around 101 to 105, so feel free to play around with it and see what suits you best. Camera movement is aimed at reducing motion sickness. Some people suggest to reduce this option to 50%. Streaming quality should be set to low, texture resolution is set to low or normal, texture filter set it to normal. Particle quality can be kept to high unless you really need that 1-2 extra frames. Bullet impacts can be kept to disabled unless you can use the visual clues from it. Tessellation can be set to disabled. Dismemberment can be switched to disabled, and so should texture streaming. Restart shader installation is useful for whenever you have issues with the game textures. From my previous tutorials, reinstalling the shaders was one of the options to try out when Warzone was crashing. Filming strength, set it to 0 and do the same for film grain. NVIDIA DLSS is very useful when you are in need of increasing the FPS. In my testing, this option provided about 10 extra frames on ultra performance mode, but had a big impact on how the game looked like. Anti-aliasing will smooth out the image, so if it doesn't create a big impact on your computer performance, you can keep it at SMAA one time, otherwise you can set it to disable. Depth of field adds blur to your image, so set it to disable. Shadow map resolution should be set to normal or low. You can leave the cache to enabled. Set the particle lightning to normal. DirectX ray tracing has a big impact on performance, so keep it to disabled if you have this option available. Ambient occlusion should be set to disabled, and so should screen space reflection. These are the most important settings that affect your game performance. Do try them out and see what provides the best balance between performance and consistent quality. If you reach this point, you should be good to go. You can check my other videos on improving the performance of the game. Even though they might be a little bit old, they can still provide you with a lot of useful tips. As promised at the beginning of the video, I will now go through some of the issues people had while installing Warzone using my previous guide. You cannot download the installer, getting failed connection or network error. This can come from several factors. You can try to choose a different download location, like another drive other than C, use a different browser, temporarily disable your firewall, or reboot your router. You manage to download the installer, but double-clicking on it does not start the installation. There are two possible reasons for this problem. Either you do not have the administrator rights, or the download has failed. For the first problem, just right-click on the installer and choose Run as Administrator. If this doesn't work, then try to re-download the installer again. Registering your Activision account does not work. In this case, you need to go to the Activision website, the link is in the description, and create your account there. Then come back, use the newly created account, and you should be good to go. Your phone number is not accepted. It seems that the account registration requires a postpaid phone. Some SMS verification website can help, but I wouldn't advise it. When you are creating your account, the region you selected is the region where your phone number should come from. The game crashes after I started up. Many people complained about frequent crashes of the game. I created a video that provided some help for some people, but it apparently did not solve everybody's problems. Go check it out, maybe it helps you too. The bottom line is that older PCs, even though sufficiently powerful, often get into crashes. From what I could notice, this usually comes from the CPU being insufficiently powerful. Download speed is too low compared to what your internet provider offers. Check if any other application, such as, for example, Windows Update or any other person in the household is not currently using the bandwidth. If that's not it, try to use a cable connection instead of the Wi-Fi. You can also try to reboot your internet router. At last, sometimes Battle.net servers are overloaded too, so you can try to change the location from where you are downloading. But don't forget to change it back once you're finished. So these were the most common questions from the previous guide. If you have any other questions, feel free to write it down in the comments and I'll get back to you. In the meantime, do like the video and subscribe. Thank you and have fun in Warzone.